So I know one of the concerns that women have in the dating world today is the idea of having to initiate, or for some pursue, or what they may perceive as chasing, right? Because there's this dynamic now where a lot of women are complaining or are stating the fact that they feel that men want to be chased now. Men want to be pursued. And here's the thing. I do think that women should be open to presenting their interests. I want to be very clear with the way I phrase that, all right? Presenting your interests. No, I don't think you should chase. No, I don't think you should technically pursue. And some of this is very wordplay, right? But I do think presenting your interest is a good thing to do and will get you more results, right? But I know that with that, there's the concern of coming off as, some may say, thirsty, looking desperate. And how do we avoid that? Or how do we even know when we are coming across as being desperate when it comes to a woman initiating interest with a man, right? So I want to help break that down, because there are some clear things that make a woman look desperate. But let me give you a couple things to consider that it is not desperation to do. So number one, simply giving a man a compliment, there's nothing desperate about that. And it's a great way to present interest, to catch attention, to present yourself, or to make it known that you have noticed that man. So don't be afraid to simply give a compliment. It can go a long way. And let me tell you, men are not accustomed to receiving compliments. So when they do, it definitely piques their interest, or it catches their attention. Now, does giving him a compliment automatically mean he's going to have interest in you? No. All right. So I'm not saying any of these things are a guaranteed way to gain a man's interest, but it can get your foot in the door. It can get the ball rolling. And then from there, he can move things forward. Okay. A second quick thing that you should not look at as desperate is sliding in the DMs. I try not to laugh, but I have to laugh. Now, I'm not laughing because I'm joking here. I'm just laughing because I know how some of y'all react to that and how some of y'all view that, okay? And some of y'all may think, hell no, you're not sliding in anyone's DMs. I understand the concern, but again, there's nothing desperate about initiating conversation, presenting interest. And because we live in the digital world that we live in today, social media, messaging people, for those who don't know what a DM is, messaging someone online, these are ways to communicate with individuals. And yes, it can lead to potential opportunities of dating, relationships. And some people have gotten married after sliding in the DMs, all right? So it can work. Now, here's the great thing about sliding in a man's DMs. You don't have to say much. More specifically, if the man is just, when I say average guy, as long as he's not an influencer, someone that has tons of followers, then any message will more than likely catch his attention. But the more followers that man gets or has, that means the more DMs he's receiving. Therefore, he may not always be able to decipher a simple message from "you're interested." So with that kind of guy, you'd have to be a little bit more direct, a little bit more clear. But in general, nothing wrong with that. And I must mention one more thing, and then we're going to get into what does make you look desperate, okay? The last thing I'm going to mention is giving a man your number. Now, listen, again, I know a lot of you ladies are like, you got us messed up, okay? We're not doing that. But hear me out. I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman. Let's just say you're having a conversation with a man, and at some point you say, well, listen, here's my number. If you're interested, give me a call. Because here, you're not chasing him by doing that. You're not, I wouldn't even count that as pursuing, so to speak, as this ongoing pursuit trying to get this man. You are giving him the option. You are letting him know the door is open. He still then has to take initiative, use the number, and it goes from there. Funny enough, I just spoke at an event in New York, and And I was telling the ladies how they should be open to presenting their interest. And this was after the show. And one of the ladies who happened to be a volunteer, she said, you know what? It works. She was driving down the street one day, saw a guy she liked. Her friends was like, you better say something. That could be your husband. They said it jokingly. So she honks her horn, and then he comes by, and then she gives him a note, and she says, follow the instructions. I forgot what else she said, but she said basically follow the instructions on the note. And on the note was her number. She said he called her, they talked. Long story short, they're married now, happily married. I'm telling you, like, you'll be surprised at how far it can get you. Now, again, it doesn't automatically mean it's going to gain the interest of a man. If he has any interest already, yes, it will work beautifully. But if there's no interest, you're not going to just make that happen out of nowhere. But again, there's nothing desperate about simply giving a man your number and saying, hey, give me a call if you're interested. But now let's get to what does make you look desperate, right? And what you should be concerned with and be very, very mindful of, all right? So let's get to the first one, and that is persistently shooting your shot. Now, again, just to be clear, for those who may not know the terminology, shoot your shot, that means making your attempt to talk to that man, saying you're interested. And when we say persistently, well, you know what that means. That's continuously trying to, I guess, convince him, or this is where we're getting into pursuing and chasing, okay? And so I've seen situations, and I'll use the DMs for a second, where a woman slid into a man's DMs, shot her shot, made her interest known, okay? And the man kind of blocked the shot. Like he kind of swatted the ball. Like he wasn't trying to hear that. He had no interest. And it wasn't like, it may not have been the most blatant shot block, but you know, it was clear the man was not interested. And it's like this woman would not give up. She kept going. And I'm not saying kept going like right away. She made her wait a couple of days, come back again, weeks later, come back. And it's like, okay, this is looking desperate. This is unattractive, because here's the reality. When you put yourself in that desperate mode, that never looks good on anyone, man or woman. All right. And so we do have to learn how to take, you know what? I don't even want to say take a hint, because I do think that sometimes hints are misinterpreted. So I want to be very careful with that. But I do think that when it is decently clear that this person is not interested, and I want to say more specifically, for a woman who is making an attempt to show interest in a man, if you are clear with your interest, now if you haven't been clear, that's something else, because he may not know what angle you're coming from, and so he's still trying to figure things out, right? And depending on the type of guy he is, he may be a little reluctant to jump to any assumptions. So he's trying to take it slow and just fill you out and see where your head's at. But, you know, that's causing the disconnect in understanding that you have interest in him. But when you are clear, if it's like, hey, you know, I would love for us to go out for dinner sometime, or to go out for coffee, or whatever the case may be, and he doesn't take that bait and run with it in any kind of way. He doesn't ask for a number. He doesn't take a rain check. Hey, because maybe it's just he's not available right now. But if a man's interested and a woman that he has interest in reaches out to him and says something like that, even if he can't entertain it right now outside of someone who's in a relationship, and let's be real, some of them dudes will still entertain it, but that's a whole different story. When he's not in a relationship, if he can't, for whatever reason, entertain it right now, maybe there's a lot of stuff going on in his life, you know, he's in a bad place mentally, whatever the case may be, he's going to at least try to secure something to make sure he can keep his foot in the door. Because one thing that a lot of men have noticed is that if you don't strike while the iron's hot, you may never get your chance again. It's like women's interest sometimes. I don't know how you guys view your interest, but it can change like the seasons. All right. It's like right now she's interested, but if you don't jump on this now, it's gone next week. Okay. So a guy understands he has to at least do something to make sure he can come back to this later. So if he does nothing at all, he's not interested. He's just not interested. Whatever that reason is, really doesn't matter. because it's not going to get you the results you want. And now if you just keep pushing, you're not making yourself look better. You're only making matters worse. That's when you have to take that cue, stage left, exit the situation, move on to something that's bigger and better. Because remember this, in everything that we talk about today, rejection is God's redirection to something better in your life. All right. So don't internalize it. Don't dwell on it. Just accept it as, all right, I got my answer. Let's move on. All right. Now let's get to number 2. And the second way women make themselves look very desperate is with excessive calling and texting. All right. Now this is, I'm going to use the word tricky point to make, because we have to be careful with how we view excessive. Excessive sometimes, or not sometimes, excessive can be very dependent on the person you're dealing with. Okay? Meaning, listen, if this guy, some guys want to talk all the time. They want to hear from you daily, right? So hitting him up or calling him daily is not excessive to him. He loves it. He enjoys it. He appreciates it. To the next guy who doesn't have either the same level of interest or doesn't have the same desire of that much communication, it can come across as excessive. Now, I will say this. The key for you to understand is, if he really likes you, it's hard for him to view anything you do as excessive. And when I say hard, I'm just saying that even if you call a lot, if he really likes you, he's going to view that in a positive light. Like, the way we view people's behaviors is very dependent on how much interest we have in them. So if we don't really like someone, them blowing our phone up is annoying as hell, okay? We're going to view them in a very negative light. It's like, what's wrong with them? And we will slap that desperate label on them. If we like them, not so much. It won't happen like that. Okay? And that's why you have this situation where you have women saying, I don't want to be clingy. But I always make the argument, you won't be clingy to the man who wants to cling to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, the man who's really into you like that is not going to view it as clingy. Even if he wants to slow it down a little bit, he won't put a negative label on it. Okay? Because he still loves and appreciates how much you're showing interest in him, how much you express desire in him, how much you want to be around him. Okay? So, the reason why we still have to mention this as it's one of those things that can make you look desperate is because I think for some women, I'll give you an example. I remember, so this is a great example of excessive texting. This was a long time ago. This is actually before I became Stephan Speaks, right? I'm going to use one of my personal examples. But all I can tell you is, like, when I think I flew in from somewhere, went out that night, met a woman. We had a great night. It was at a club or something like that. Next day we're talking, whatever. Now, I got busy during the day. So I think she texted me, and then I'm still busy. I wasn't even, like, looking at the text. When I got back to my phone, and you know what? I'm saying text. I wonder if it was even text or just phone calls. Either way, it was like 14 of them, all right, in a row. That's excessive. Not only is that excessive, it looks crazy as hell. All right. How you calling or texting me 14 times in a row in the span of a few hours? Clearly, I am not available. It had me worried. I don't know if y'all ever seen the movie. I think it's Thin Line Between Love and Hate with Martin Lawrence, and I forgot the woman actor's name. But I was like, oh my gosh, I think I got myself into some crazy situation. Like, it had me legitimately scared for a second. So that's a clear example of you're doing too damn much. All right. And you got to check yourself. And I think it's very easy for some women to sometimes get lost in their emotions in the moment and lose sight of how they're behaving and how they're approaching things. Okay. But I think also when it comes to excessive calling and texting, it's also about, is he reciprocating your energy? So, I don't want you to have this idea of, well, I don't want to call him today, or, I already call him too much. However, it's only too much if he's never calling you and you're always calling him. So if y'all call each other, but you call him a little bit more, or you initiate phone calls a little bit more, that's different. I would also say one of the great ways you're going to know if you're doing too much or not is if when you're calling, he's never available, or he makes the conversations quick, like he doesn't want to be on the phone with you, then that shows you're doing too much by constantly trying to push the issue of calling and texting. However, if you may call more than him, but he gladly jumps on the call with you, has conversation, engages in communication, then that to me says he enjoys speaking to you. You may just be more the initiator of those conversations. There's nothing wrong with that, because in relationships, we have different strengths. We have different weaknesses. So he may initiate more in certain regards. You're going to initiate more in other regards. There's nothing wrong with that. It's only a problem when you're noticing that person does not welcome your initiation. All right. And is resisting it. Now it's like, okay, you have to ask yourself, why am I really doing this? Because some of you are over calling, over texting because you're looking for that reassurance that he's available, that he's not seeing someone else, that he has any interest, rather than, no, I just want to talk to him. I enjoy speaking to him. And we have great conversations, which means he enjoys it too. So you got to be mindful of it, but I don't want this point to scare you into thinking you shouldn't make that phone call, you shouldn't send that text, because at the end of the day, before we move on to the next point, I do want you to be yourself, okay? And being yourself may have you looking desperate to one guy, but will have you looking amazing to the next guy. So be true to you. If you're someone who loves to call and text, be that woman, because you want to make sure you are getting involved with a man who embraces that. And the best way to see if he embraces that is by being yourself, taking that, doing, those things as calling and texting, and seeing how he handles it and responds to it. And that will give you a clearer picture of what kind of man you're dealing with. All right. The third thing that makes a woman look desperate is throwing yourself at a man sexually. Now, let's be very clear with this, because I'm sure there's men listening to this who are saying, I want her to throw herself at me. Please throw it over here. Okay? And I get that. And so I don't want you to confuse initiating intimacy with throwing yourself at him sexually. Now, you're asking, Stephan, what's the difference? I'm going to tell you what the difference is. Let's start with throwing yourself at him sexually. Again, it kind of goes in line with the excessive calling or the constantly shooting your shot. It's when you are in this overbearing way, like forcing the issue. Because here's the thing. When it comes to intimacy, you ain't got to force nothing with a man who wants to engage with you intimately. Plain and simple. We just need a green light. All we need is one green light, okay? We don't need many green lights. We just need one that says, hey, you're with it. We are good to go. Now, granted, I do think, especially in today's age, a man might need 2 or 3 green lights, because some men don't want to jump the gun, make any bad assumptions, get caught up in some situation where he's accused of any wrongdoing. So you want to make sure if you're either going to give one really strong, bright green light or multiple green lights that make it clear, right? But again, it's about you as a woman being mindful of, is he even receptive to this? Because once he's not really being receptive, but you keep pushing, you're throwing yourself at him. That's the problem. And so you notice the common theme here is the man reciprocating, receiving, enjoying what you're bringing to him? If he is, it's not throwing yourself at him. So, for example, if you're chilling with a guy and you're the one to put your hand on his leg, or you start rubbing on him, that's not throwing yourself on him. That's being sensual. That's being flirtatious. That's initiating intimacy. And again, if he has interest, if he likes you, or he's already your man, then he's in most cases, because there's some guys who are built different, but in most cases, he'll love that. But if you're doing these things and you're noticing he moves his leg or he turns his shoulder, or he's just not going with your flow, but then you keep doing it, like you're doing too much. You're throwing yourself at him and you're making yourself look desperate. I think another way that can lead to women looking desperate, but I don't want to say it's completely out of your power, but I'll just explain. If you had too many to drink, all right, and now you're getting sloppy with everything, and you're really just all over the place. And I won't even say that makes you look desperate, so to speak, because I think people will view it as you're under the influence. It just makes it's not always a good look. All right. So you want to be mindful of that. And if you're a woman who knows that you're either lightweight when it comes to drinking, or you get a certain kind of way if you drink too much, well, you got to be mindful of that so you don't cross a certain line. All right. Drink responsibly and know what your limits are. But outside of that, I do want to stress that, again, initiating is fine. All right. And I think one of the biggest wishes that men have, especially married men, is their partner initiating more. All right. Because men don't want it to be where it's great that if you're always willing to engage with him when he desires it from you. That's wonderful. But a man doesn't want it to only be that. He wants it to also be that you are initiating, because you initiating shows desire on your end. All right. Like you just being willing to go along with it. Again, that shows a willingness, that shows that's an angle that he can appreciate, but it doesn't necessarily automatically make him feel very desired as much as initiating would. So be mindful of that. And of course, for those of you who might be saying, but Stephan, we're not supposed to be having sex before marriage, all right? Again, y'all know if y'all watch my other videos, I don't dispute that at all, but I also acknowledge that most people aren't going to wait that long. So we still have to discuss how this dynamic works if you're going to include this in your relationship or in your dating, which I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying you have to be mindful of these things. All right, so real quick before I continue to the next one, I just want to let you know, if you're looking for books, coaching, anything, whatever you need, any resources to improve your dating life, to heal, to tap into your feminine energy, you name it, head over to stephanspeakshop.com. Everything is there for you. You'll find them in the different sections. You'll see all the great reviews, all the people getting help by these various products. You'll find exactly what you need. So go check it out, get you one of those things, and start experiencing better results. All right, so now next on the list of things that make a woman look desperate, and I've already kind of mentioned it several times, so I'm just going to reiterate this point real quick, and that's constantly doing for him with no reciprocation. All right, so whether you're dating or already in the relationship, because unfortunately a lot of women have entered into relationships with men who don't really do for them, okay? And when you are constantly doing for someone who doesn't return it to you, I will say this, it may not look desperate. He may not frame it as desperate to him because he's just enjoying taking advantage of the situation. But to others, it looks desperate. And in reality, you are operating out of some level of desperation. Now, I know a lot of women may not like to accept that reality. They don't like that label of feeling like they're being desperate. But you have to ask yourself, why would you, or why would any woman keep giving to a man who doesn't give back? Something is causing you to be fearful of walking away. Something is causing you to turn a blind eye to the fact that he does not pour into you. And yes, at some level, there is desperation. The desperation of maybe I won't find someone else. The desperation of maybe I don't want to be alone. The desperation of maybe I don't want to start over. And we can replace the word desperation with fear. Because it all goes hand in hand. Because when we are desperate, we are fearful. All right? And it can come about for various reasons. So you really have to be mindful of that and understand that you cannot build nor sustain a relationship when it's one-sided. All right? There has to be a mutual effort. Now, listen, notice I said mutual effort, not equal production of all the same things. Meaning, it's not this idea of, well, I call this much, he has to call that much. I do this thing this much, he has to do this thing that much. No, it's just that we are equally showing an effort and it all balances each other out. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you may do more of one thing, but he does more of a different thing. But together, it makes a beautiful thing. All right. And so there's various areas that we want to identify. And I think it's important for everyone, especially in the dating phase, more specifically in the dating phase, to start to determine what those things may be. We need to be honest about what we are able to give or willing to give. So I'm going to give an example. I'm going to use me. Some of y'all have heard this example from me before. But I always say I am a payer, not a planner. Here's what I'm talking about. Some of you ladies talk about how you want a man who's going to plan dates and plan trips and all this planning stuff, right? And sorry to tell you, that ain't me. Well, I ain't sorry to tell you because you ain't trying to get me right now. But I'm letting you know there's other men like me. We don't care for the planning. That's not our thing. Now, my solution to balancing that out is I am a payer. I will gladly give you my credit card, say, baby, knock it out, get what you want, make it work. I'm good. Okay? That is, to me, a fair exchange. Now, to some women, that's not acceptable. Some women will still say, no, you need to plan. You need to plan. And to that I say, tough luck. I was going to say something else, but no, for me, no. Now, I'm not saying in my example, I would never plan a date, never plan a trip, but that will never be my consistent contribution to the relationship. Okay. I don't even plan my own parties. Okay. I shouldn't even be saying this, but I'm going to say it. It's so bad. I'm kind of ashamed to say this, but it's so bad. For one of my homeboys, he was getting married and he was having his bachelor party and he knows me. You know what I'm saying? We're like brothers. He's like, bruh, I already know. Just tell me what the budget is. I'll take care of the rest. All right? So even though it was his bachelor party, he took care of the planning. I took care of the expenses. It was good. Everybody had a great time. He got married. Everybody's happy. Okay? So all that to say, listen, there's various areas where we need to sit down and discuss. And again, if it doesn't work for you, whatever that balance that's being proposed is, so be it. But be open to the fact that we don't all have to equally provide certain things. We just need to figure out where we fit, what works for each other, and what we can reasonably sustain to have a successful relationship. All right, so now number 5, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a couple more. This happens so many times. I had a couple more, but for the sake of not making this video extra long, we got 5 and I got one more thing to say. So the 5th thing that makes a woman look very desperate is constantly pushing for a relationship. All right. So here's the deal. And again, you're going to notice the same common denominator in a second. There's nothing wrong with a woman asking a man, where do we stand? There is nothing wrong with a woman making it clear to a man that she desires a relationship, that she desires engagement, that she desires marriage, whatever your level of commitment that you desire is, there's nothing wrong with stating that, all right? And you should state that, and you should hold your ground on whatever you feel is the time frame that is acceptable for you dealing with this man. Because I'm not someone who believes in the idea that we need these long relationships before we decide if we want to get married outside of extremely young couples. To me, that's where it's a little bit different. But past a certain age, it's like, I don't think that's necessary. So you should not be afraid to speak on those things. But when you are constantly pushing for it, what does that mean? That means he has yet to accept. That means he is consistently resisting. All right. So what did we say earlier? It only crosses the line of desperation when they are not receiving what you're trying to bring. When they are not interested in what you are proposing, but you keep pushing the issue. If you have to constantly push for a relationship, then you should stop pushing and start walking. All right? Because what are we doing here? And here's the thing. Walking, this is my perspective. I'm a firm believer that walking away doesn't automatically mean the door has to be shut forever. I don't believe in that. What I believe is that it's about saying to someone, hey, I've reached a point where I feel that we need to be able to go to that next level and be committed. If you are unwilling to commit right now, so be it. But I'm not going to accept that. So I'm going to go my way. You should go your way. Now, if you come to Jesus moment or whatever, and you decide that you now want to make it work and you are prepared to do what is necessary, you can come and talk to me. And if I am still available, right, we can cross that bridge and see if we can then take it from there. And so it's saying to them, listen, okay, cool. I accept you're not ready for whatever reason, but I don't have to continue in this gray area of essentially a situationship at that point while you're still trying to figure out, or you're just resisting it or don't want it for whatever reason. Because in many situations, the resistance isn't really about, I just need more time. The resistance is usually about, I really don't want to do this, and I'm hoping I can drag this out longer before you give me either no choice or you walk away from me. Okay? So there is no point in constantly going back and forth with this man and battling about your desire for a relationship. Once he knows it's time to step up or not. Now, if you want to throw it out one time, he doesn't take it, and you want to give him one more chance, okay, cool. But I'm pretty much a 2 strikes and you're out type of person. All right, I don't know about these 3 strikes no more, okay? Once you let him know the first time he don't want it, you got one more chance. After that, what are we doing? It's pointless to continue after that. And again, now you look desperate. It does not look good on you. It does not help you become more desirable to this man. And now it starts to weigh on you, wreak havoc, cause damage, cause trauma, which can very much derail you for the person who is actually best for you. Because then you finally, if you stay too long with this guy, and now you take on all that damage, and God forbid you don't heal before you move on to your next situation, well, you're going to end up carrying that baggage with you, projecting that negativity onto the next person, and making that new man pay for what your old man was doing or your old situation was doing. So be very mindful of that. And again, I don't ever want you to be afraid to speak your mind, to express your feelings. I just want you to be honest with yourself when you're dealing with someone who's not trying to go on the path with you, who is resistant to what you desire, to the way you are wired, to what you are looking and hoping for out of that situation, because you deserve better. You deserve what is best for you. You deserve what God has for you. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on if you want more from someone, do not chase him. The reality, unfortunately, is that many do not. Many do not, or even if they could, they may not reach it with you. Why? Because again, they're not a good fit.
We'll be right back.